Dominica, Island Carib, officially the Commonwealth of Dominica, is an island country in the West Indies. The capital, Roseau, is located on the western side of the island. It is part of the Windward Islands in the Lesser Antilles archipelago in the Caribbean Sea. The island is located near Guadeloupe to the northwest and Martinique to the south-southeast. Its area is, and the highest point is Mont Diablotin, at in elevation. The population was 71,293 at the 2011 census. It is the youngest island in the Lesser Antilles, and in fact it is still being formed by geothermal volcanic activity, as evidenced by the world's second largest hot spring, called Boiling Lake. The island has lush mountainous rainforests, and it is the home of many rare plants, animals, and bird species. There are xeric areas in some of the western coastal regions, but heavy rainfall occurs inland. The Cicero parrot, also known as the imperial Amazon and found only on Dominica, is the island's national bird and featured on the national flag, which is one of only two national flags containing the color purple, the other being Nicaragua.
History: pre-colonial period and early European contact.
Dominica's pre-colonial indigenous inhabitants were the island Carib people, who are thought to have driven out the previous Arawak population. The Caribs called the island Weta Cubuli, which means tall is her body. Christopher Columbus, sailing for Spain, named the island as Dominica, after the Latin term dies Dominica for Sunday, the day on which the Spanish first saw it in November 1493. Some Spanish colonizers settled here. But, as European explorers and settlers entered the region, indigenous refugees from surrounding islands settled Dominica and pushed out the Spanish settlers. They went to other areas that were easier to control and had more natural resources.
French colony.
Spain had little success in colonizing Dominica. In 1632, the French Compagnie des Isles de l'Amérique claimed it and other Petites Antilles for France, but no physical occupation took place. Between 1642 and 1650, French missionary Raymond Breton became the first regular European visitor to the island. In 1660, the French and English agreed that Dominica and St. Vincent should not be settled, but instead left to the Carib as neutral territory. But its natural resources attracted expeditions of English and French foresters, who began harvesting timber. In 1690, the French established their first permanent settlements. French woodcutters from Martinique and Guadeloupe began to set up timber camps to supply the French islands with wood, and they gradually became permanent settlers. They brought the first enslaved Africans from West Africa to Dominique, as they called it in French. In 1715, a revolt of poor white smallholders in the north of Martinique, known as La Gaule, caused settlers to migrate to southern Dominique, where they set up small holdings. Meanwhile, French families and others from Guadeloupe settled in the north. In 1727, the first French commander, M. Legrand, took charge of the island with a basic French government. Dominique formally became a colony of France, and the island was divided into districts or quarters. The French had already developed plantation agriculture on Martinique and Guadeloupe, where they cultivated sugarcane with enslaved African workers. In Dominique they gradually developed coffee plantations. They imported so many African slaves to fill the labor demands that the population became predominantly African in ethnicity. In 1761, during the 7 Years' War in Europe, a British expedition against Dominique led by Andrew Rollo conquered the island, along with several other Caribbean islands. In 1763, France had lost the war and ceded the island to Great Britain under the Treaty of Paris. The same year, the British established a legislative assembly, with only European colonists represented. French remained the official language, but Antine Creole, which had developed from it, was spoken by most of the population. In 1778 the French, with the active cooperation of the population, began the recapture of Dominica. This was ended by the Treaty of Paris 1783, which returned the island to British control. But the island population, especially the class of free people of color, resisted British restrictions. The British retained control through French invasions in 1795 and 1805, the first taking place during the period of the Haitian Revolution, which gained the independence of Haiti, formerly Saint-Domingue, France's richest Caribbean colony.
British colony.
Great Britain established a small colony in 1805. It used Dominica as part of the triangular trade, by which slaves were imported and sold as labor in the islands as part of a trade that included producing and shipping sugar and coffee as commodity crops to Europe. The best documented slave plantation on the island is Hillsborough Estate, which had 71 male and 68 female slaves. The Gregg family were notable. Thomas Hodgson, a brother-in-law, owned a slave ship, and Thomas Gregg and his son John Gregg were part owners of sugar plantations on Dominica. In January 1814, 20 slaves absconded from Hillsborough. They were recorded as recaptured and punished with 100 lashes applied to the males and 50 for the females. The slaves reportedly said that one of their people had died in the plantation hospital, and they believed he had been poisoned. In 1831, reflecting a liberalization of official British racial attitudes, the Brown Privilege Bill conferred political and social rights on free blacks, mostly free people of color, who generally were of mixed race, with African and European ancestry. With the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833, Britain ended the institution of slavery throughout its empire, except in India, where it was considered part of the culture. With freedom came enfranchisement. In 1835, the first 3 men of African descent were elected to the Legislative Assembly of Dominica. Many slaves from the neighboring French colonial islands of Guadeloupe and Martinique fled to Dominica. In 1838, Dominica became the first colony of the British West Indies to have an elected legislature controlled by an ethnic African majority. Most of these legislators had been free people of color and smallholders or merchants before the abolition of slavery. Their economic and social views were different from the interests of the small, wealthy English planter class. Reacting to a perceived threat to their power, the planters lobbied for more direct British rule. After the Federation dissolved in 1962, Dominica became an associated state of the United Kingdom in 1967, and formally took responsibility for its internal affairs. On the 3rd of November 1978, the Commonwealth of Dominica was granted independence as a republic, led by Prime Minister Patrick John.
Post-independence.
In mid-1979, political discontent with the Patrick administration led to the formation of an interim government under Oliver Serafin. His brief year-long premiership was dominated by the fallout from Hurricane David, which caused 56 deaths and untold damage across the island. Hurricane Allen the following year caused further damage. After the 1980 election, Serafin's government was replaced by one led by the Dominica Freedom Party (DFP) under Prime Minister Eugenia Charles. She was the Caribbean's first female prime minister. In 1981, Charles' government was threatened with 2 attempted coups. The first was led by Frederick Newton, commander of the military of Dominica, who organized an attack on the police headquarters in Roseau which resulted in the death of a police officer. Newton and 5 other soldiers were found guilty in the attack and sentenced to death in 1983. The sentences of the 5 accomplices were later commuted to life in prison, but Newton was executed in 1986. In Operation Red Dog, led by Mike Perdue and Wolfgang Droege, they tried to overthrow Charles as Prime Minister and reinstall ex-Prime Minister John in exchange for control over the country's development. The FBI was tipped off, and the ship hired to transport the mercenaries never left dock. The mercenaries lacked formal military experience or training, and most of the crew had been misled into joining by the ringleader Mike Perdue. White supremacist Don Black was also jailed for his part in the attempted coup, which violated U.S. neutrality laws. The Charles government supported the 1983 American invasion of Grenada, earning Dominica praise from the Reagan administration and an increase in financial aid. By the end of the 1980s, The economy has begun to recover, however it weakened again in the 1990s due to a decrease in banana prices. James attempted to diversify the Dominican economy away from over-reliance on bananas. The crop was largely destroyed by Hurricane Luis in 1995. In the 2000 election, the UWP were defeated by the DLP, led by left-leaning Roosevelt P. Rosie Douglas. However, Douglas died after only a few months in office. He was replaced by Pierre Charles, who also died in office in January 2004. Roosevelt Scarrett, also of the DLP, replaced Charles as prime minister, becoming the world's youngest head of state. Under Scarrett's leadership, the DLP won elections in May 2005 that gave the party 12 seats in the 21-member parliament, to the UWP's 8 seats. An independent candidate affiliated with the DLP won a seat as well. Later, the independent candidate joined the government and one UWP member crossed the aisle, making the total 14 seats for the DLP and 7 for the UWP. The DWP under Scarrett went on to also win the 2014 Dominican general election. On the 17th of September 2012, Illard Thaddeus Williams was sworn in as president, a largely ceremonial role, replacing Dr. Nicholas Liverpool, who was reportedly removed from office due to ill health. On the 30th of September 2013, former trade union leader and agitator Charles Severin was elected president, having only days before resigned as a minister of government. Tropical storm Erika devastated the island in August 2015, killing 30 and causing severe environmental and economic damage. Dominica was again struck on the 18th of September 2017, suffering a direct landfall from Category 5 Hurricane Maria. Early estimates of damage suggested 90% of the buildings on the island had been destroyed, with infrastructure left in ruins. The UK, France and the Netherlands set up shipping and airlifts to take aid to the island, the scale of destruction having left most people homeless and desperate.
Geography and climate.
Dominica is an island nation in the Caribbean Sea, the northernmost of the Windward Islands, though it is sometimes considered the southernmost of the Leeward Islands. The size of the country is about 29 miles 47 kilometers long and 16 miles 26 kilometers wide. Known as the Nature Island of the Caribbean due to its lush scenery and varied flora and fauna, Dominica is largely covered by rainforest and is home to the world's second largest hot spring, Boiling Lake, the most mountainous of the Lesser Antilles. Its volcanic peaks are cones of lava craters, the largest of these being north to south Morne Diables, Morne Diablotins, the highest on the island at 1,447 meters, Morne Trois Pitons and Morne Anglais. Morne Trois Pitons National Park is a tropical forest blended with volcanic features. It was recognized as a World Heritage Site on the 4th of April 1995. A distinction it shares with 4 other Caribbean islands. The Calibishi area in the country's northeast has sandy beaches. Some plants and animals thought to be extinct on surrounding islands can still be found in Dominica's forests. The island has several protected areas, including Cabrits National Park, as well as 365 rivers. More recently, the citizens of this island have sought to preserve the natural environment, encouraging ecotourism and discouraging the type of high-impact tourism common in other parts of the Caribbean. There are 2 primary population centers, the capital Roseau with 14,725 inhabitants in 2011 and Portsmouth with 4,167 inhabitants in 2011. The main centers tend to be located around the coast, with the mountainous interior sparsely populated. Dominica is especially vulnerable to hurricanes as the island is located in what is referred to as the hurricane region. In 1979, Hurricane David struck the island as a Category 4 hurricane, causing widespread and extreme damage. On the 17th of August 2007, Hurricane Dean, a Category 1 hurricane at the time, hit the island. A mother and her 7-year-old son died when a landslide caused by the heavy rains crushed their house. In another incident, 2 people were injured when a tree fell on their house. Prime Minister Roosevelt's cabinet estimated that 100 to 125 homes were damaged, and that the agricultural sector was extensively damaged, in particular the banana crop. In August 2015, Tropical Storm Erika caused extensive flooding and landslides across the island. Multiple communities were evacuated and upwards of 30 people were killed. According to a rapid damage and impact assessment prepared for Dominica by the World Bank, the total damage and losses from the storm were $484, 82 million or 90% of Dominica's yearly GDP. Category 5 Hurricane Maria struck the island in 2017 and caused losses of approximately $930 million or 226% of GDP. A related species, the jacko or red-necked parrot Araucaria, is also a Dominican endemic. Both birds are rare and protected, though some forest is still threatened by logging. In addition to the long-standing threat of hurricanes, the Caribbean Sea offshore of the island of Dominica is home to many cetaceans. Most notably, a group of sperm whales live in this area year-round. Other cetaceans commonly seen in the area include spinner dolphins, pantropical spotted dolphins and bottlenose dolphins. Less commonly seen animals include killer whales, false killer whales, pygmy sperm whales, dwarf sperm whales, Risso's dolphins, common dolphins, Atlantic spotted dolphins, humpback whales and bride's whales. This makes Dominica a destination for tourists interested in whale watching.
Territorial disputes.
The Commonwealth of Dominica is engaged in a long-running dispute with Venezuela over Venezuela's territorial claims to the sea surrounding Isla Waves, literally Bird Island, but in fact called Bird Rock by Dominican authorities, a tiny islet located west of the island of Dominica.
Government.
Dominica is a parliamentary democracy within the Commonwealth of Nations. Dominica is also a member of the International Criminal Court with a bilateral immunity agreement of protection for the U.S. military, as covered under Article 98. In January 2008, Dominica joined the Bolivarian Alternative for the Americas.
Administrative divisions.
Dominica is divided into 10 parishes, given below with their 2011 census populations: St. Andrew Parish 9,471, St. David Parish 6,043, St. George Parish 21,241, St. John Parish 6,561, St. Joseph Parish 5,637, St. Luke Parish 1,668, St. Mark Parish 1,834, St. Patrick Parish 7,622, St. Paul Parish 9,786, St. Peter Parish 1,430.
Economy.
Bananas and other agriculture dominate Dominica's economy, and nearly 1/3 of the labor force works in agriculture. This sector, however, is highly vulnerable to weather conditions and to external events affecting commodity prices. In 2007, Hurricane Dean caused significant damage to the agricultural sector as well as the country's infrastructure, especially roads. In response to reduced European Union EU banana trade preferences, the government has diversified the agricultural sector by promoting the production of coffee, patchouli, aloe vera, cut flowers, and exotic fruits such as mango, guava, and papaya. The expected increase of Dominica's citizenship by investment CBI fees has been suspended with no implementation date in sight, as announced by Prime Minister Roosevelt's cabinet in the 2016 budget speech.
International trade.
Dominica is a beneficiary of the Caribbean Basin Initiative CBI that grants duty-free entry into the United States for many goods. Dominica also belongs to the predominantly English-speaking Caribbean community CARICOM, the CARICOM Single Market and Economy CSME, and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States EX. However, The Commonwealth of Dominica successfully avoided being placed on the ECT blacklist by committing to regulatory reform to improve transparency and begin information exchange with ECT member countries about their citizens.
Economic immigrants.
The Commonwealth of Dominica offers an official and legally mandated economic citizenship to those seeking a valid second citizenship. The nationality law of Dominica authorizes the government to waive the normal requirement of 7 years of legal residence to acquire citizenship in exchange for an investment into their country's economy. The required contribution for a main applicant starts at $100,000 through the Economic Diversification Fund. Alternatively, since 2014, applicants can make a $200,000 minimum investment in pre-approved real estate from island-exclusive resorts or global brands like Marriott, Kempinski or Hilton. According to officials, the Citizenship by Investment (CBI) program was an economic and fiscal lifeline in the aftermath of Tropical Storm Erika in 2015 and Hurricane Maria in 2017. And its new investment option had become the main source of foreign direct investment into Dominica by early 2016. Dominican citizens can travel without a visa, or obtain a visa upon entry, to nearly 140 countries and territories, including the United Kingdom and the Schengen Zone. Applying for Dominica citizenship requires interacting with official government-approved economic citizenship agents as the first step in the application process. This program is currently valued at 16% of the government's total revenue. The government's management of the economic citizenship program and an initial perceived lack of transparency in the use of the revenues generated are a frequent topic of heated domestic political controversy. Referring to the opposition, Prime Minister Scarlett in 2016 stated that if they can discredit the Citizenship by Investment program and make Dominica an unattractive place to obtain citizenship, then revenues would fall and the government would not be able to rebuild the country, or the government would then have to increase taxes on the people, making itself unpopular in their sight. Since then, the government of Dominica has improved transparency of CBI funds. According to Prime Minister Scarlett's 2018 to 2019 budget address, the island's CBI program has helped develop a national health insurance pilot that provides Dominican children in critical medical conditions with overseas treatment. Because many residents were displaced by Hurricane Maria's impact on the small Caribbean island, the government pledged to build 5,000 hurricane-proof homes, of which the first batch of 125 houses are scheduled for occupancy in February 2019. The CBI program also helps develop significantly the island's eco-tourism sector and creating jobs along the way. Furthermore, the Scarlett administration sets aside $5 million every month for the construction of a new airport. The Financial Times professional wealth management publication ranked Dominica as their http://www.tradearabia.com/news/miscellaneous_344359 HTML World's Best Citizenship by Investment Program, in its annual CBI Index. According to the FD Specialist Report, investors choose Dominica's citizenship because it has the most affordable investment threshold. The application process is straightforward and streamlined, while the due diligence i.e. the security checks each applicant is subjected to remains very strict.
Tourism.
Dominica is mostly volcanic and has few beaches, therefore, tourism has developed more slowly than on neighboring islands. Nevertheless, Dominica's mountains, rainforests, freshwater lakes, hot springs, waterfalls, and diving spots make it an attractive ecotourism destination. Cruise ship stopovers have increased following the development of modern docking and waterfront facilities in Roseau, the capital. The volcanic nature of the island has attracted scuba divers.
Infrastructure. Air.
There are 2 regional airports on the island, but no international airports. Therefore, flying to Dominica requires traveling through San Juan, Puerto Rico or other nearby islands in the Caribbean such as Martinique, Guadeloupe, or Barbados. The primary airport, Douglas Charles Airport Dom. is on the northeast coast and is about a 45-minute drive from Portsmouth, 1 hour from Roseau. The second is Canefield Airport DCF, about 15 minutes from Roseau on the southwest coast. Douglas Charles Airport is suitable for limited use of commercial jets because of runway length. Douglas Charles currently has regular service by Air Sunshine, Winair, Seabourn Airlines and Liat using twin-turboprop aircraft like the 8TR and Saab 340, as well as Conviasa and Amerijet, which, using Boeing 727 freighters, is the only airline with jet service to the Republic. A runway extension and service upgrade project began at Douglas Charles Airport around 2006 and was finished in 2010. In March 2013, airline American Eagle halted flights to the island citing high labor costs.
Roads.
Dominica's road network runs primarily along the coastline and along river valleys. Major roads are two-lane highways which connect the capital, Roseau, with Portsmouth Edward Oliver Leblanc Highway and the Douglas Charles Airport Dr. Nicholas Liverpool Highway. It takes about 45 minutes to drive from Portsmouth to Roseau. Private minibuses form the major public transport system. These major roads were recently reconstructed with assistance from the People's Republic of China and the European Union. Due to Tropical Storm Erika, several road surfaces and bridges were damaged by flooding and landslides, including on the newly completed Leblanc Roseau to Portsmouth and Dr. Nicholas Liverpool Highways Boncaster Douglas Charles Airport.
Green energy.
Dominica's electricity sector includes power from hydroelectricity, solar energy, and geothermal energy.
Demographics.
The vast majority of Dominicans are of African descent. There is a growing mixed population along with a small European origin minority descendants of French and British colonists along with some people of Irish descent, and there are small numbers of Lebanese, Syrians and Asians. Dominica is also the only Eastern Caribbean island that still has a population of pre-Columbian native Kalinago, previously called Caribs, who were exterminated or driven from neighboring islands. There are more than 3,000 Kalinago remaining. They live in 8 villages on the east coast of Dominica. This special Carib territory, now Kalinago territory, was granted by the British Crown in 1903. There also used to be an annual 1,000 medical students from the United States and Canada who studied at the Ross University School of Medicine in Portsmouth, but whose campus permanently relocated to Barbados at the beginning of the 2019 spring semester due to extensive hurricane damage suffered at the Dominican campus. The population growth rate of Dominica is very low, due primarily to emigration to other countries. In the early 21st century, emigrant numbers for the most popular countries are as follows: the United States 8,560, the United Kingdom 6,739, Canada 605, and France 394. Dominica has a relatively large number of centenarians. As of March 2007, there are 22 centenarians out of the island's 70,000 inhabitants, 3 times the average incidence of centenarianism in developed countries. The reasons for this are the subject of current research being undertaken at Ross University School of Medicine. Dominica was partially integrated into the federal colony of the Leeward Islands in 1832. Later, in 1871, it became a full part of the Federation of the Leeward Islands. From the start it was a peculiar relationship, for previously Dominica had played no part in the political or cultural traditions of the other more Anglophone islands of the Federation. Now, as a Leeward Island, this much larger territory, with thousands of acres of forested unclaimed land, was open to the people of Montserrat and Antigua. At the beginning of the 20th century, the Roses Company, which produced Rose's lime juice, saw demand for its product outgrow its ability to supply the product from Montserrat. Their response to the situation was to buy land on Dominica and encourage Montserrat farm laborers to relocate. As a result, there came to be 2 linguistic communities in Dominica, Wesley and Marigot. In 1902, on 8 May, The Mount Pelly volcano on Martinique erupted, destroying the city of Saint-Pierre. Refugees from Martinique arrived in boats to the southern villages of Dominica, and some remained permanently on the island.
Languages.
English is the official language of Dominica and is universally spoken and understood. In addition, Dominican Creole, an Antine Creole based on French, is widely spoken. This is due to French migration to the island starting in 1690. A majority French Creole-speaking population that resided on the island, and its location between the two French-speaking departments of Martinique and Guadeloupe. Since 1979, Dominica has been a member of La Francophonie. Dominican Creole is particularly used among the older generation, which also speaks a patois language. Because of a decline in the use of Creole by the younger generation, initiatives have been set up in an effort to increase usage and promote this unique part of the nation's history and culture. Along with Creole, a dialect known as Khoikhoi or Khoikhoi is spoken. It is a type of Pidgin English which is a mix of Leeward Island English Creole and Dominican Creole, and is mainly spoken in the northeastern villages of Marigot and Wesley, by the descendants of immigrants from Montserrat and Antigua. Over time there has been much intermarrying, but there are still traces of difference in origin. As a result of this mixture of languages and heritage, Dominica is a member of both the French-speaking Francophonie and the English-speaking Commonwealth of Nations. Island Carib, also known as Ignorai and Erai, Egnorai, Ainari, was an Arawakan language historically spoken by the island Caribs of the Lesser Antilles in the Caribbean. The island Caribs lived throughout the southern Lesser Antilles such as Dominica, St. Vincent and Trinidad, supposedly having conquered them from their previous inhabitants, the Ignorai. Island Carib became extinct about 1920, but an offshoot survives as Garifuna, primarily in Central America.
Religion.
61.4% of the population is Roman Catholic, though in recent years a number of Protestant churches have been established. About 10 to 12% of the population belongs to one of the Seventh-day Saturday denominations, which includes Yahweh Congregation, Church of God Seventh-day, and the Seventh-day Adventist Church. According to the Association of Religion Data Archives, in 2010 the World Christian Database reported that the largest non-Christian religious groups included Spiritualism followed by 2.6% of the population, Baha'i followed by 1.7%, Agnosticism followed by 0.5%, Buddhism, Hinduism,